And now it's Deborah Kobylt Live.
Hi, everybody. Welcome today to Deborah Kobylt Live. And I'd like to introduce you to Judy Wilkins-Smith, who wrote this terrific book, Decoding Your Emotional Blueprint, which I understand hit #1 on Amazon. So, congratulations to you, Judy. Gosh, we've been seeing you everywhere talking about this book and how we can decode that emotional blueprint that is often part of our DNA and how we can reframe our behaviors. So, gee, welcome to our show.
Thank you. It's lovely to be with you.
Absolutely. Talk to me first about what is decoding your emotional blueprint. If you could sum it up for us a little bit, and why did you write this book?
Okay, so what is your emotional blueprint? Your emotional DNA, first of all, is the sum total of all of your thoughts, feelings, actions, inactions, and events that you've inherited from prior generations. So you don't just inherit physical DNA, you also inherit your emotional DNA. So that's
Mm,
emotional DNA. Now, we have an event creates a reaction, which creates language, and the language creates thoughts, feelings, actions. And if it's strong enough, it creates an imprint on the system, which then becomes the blueprint for generations of behavior or generations of actions and reactions to and around everything in your life.
mm. I recognize that because sometimes I think back to my own parents and then their family, and then reactions that I've had as a young person, and then as an adult, and then as a parent. And I've really had to take a stop, especially when I became a parent, and said, hmm, that's not serving them well because it's never served me well. And that really, I had to take a pause with a lot of
Yeah,
that.
exactly.
That's why this is such a critical book. Let's go a little bit, talk a little bit about changing patterns. I kind of footnoted certain bits in your book and talking about how we are all connected. You give a terrific example very early on about emotional DNA and how we handle it from, generations prior to now. Could you give that example? You did one in particular about grandpa losing his business and losing money. Could you talk about
Yeah.
that?
So emotional DNA encompasses all sorts of things. Money DNA is one of them. So you don't just inherit your emotional DNA, you inherit the money DNA aspect of it. And so people will come to me quite often and say, I'm struggling with money. And I say, let's have a look. In this example, there was a person who was really struggling, who wanted to do well with money, but kind of the thought was, we don't do well with money in our family system. It just doesn't happen for us. When we had a look, Grandpa had a business, he lost the business, and then it was a sort of a sense of, well, it comes, it goes, you work hard, and now look, it's all gone, and we're all in trouble, and money is not a friend. And money is not a friend to many of us. Not the truth, by the way, money is a wonderful friend when you know how to look at it. But so his pattern of money is not a friend, money comes and goes, kept echoing through the system. So dad didn't do well either. So along comes the
Ah.
client and says, we get taught all of these things like money isn't a friend and we're not going to do well with it. And I don't like that. I really want to change it. And I'm scared. So I said to him, okay, so let's have a look. The money pattern that wants to stop is money is not a friend. Money comes and goes. We don't do well. Because those thoughts become a library inside of you. And the thoughts, feelings, and actions, if you tell yourself a good enough story and your body buys it, that then
Hmm.
becomes the truth. Only it's not the truth, it's just your truth, and you can change it anytime. So what we did was we had a look at the specific language that was being used and passed down and the specific actions like it comes, it goes, it comes, it goes. And then we said to him, so what do you want to do with money? I want to have security because we haven't. I want to build wealth. I want to do good things for other people and for my family. I want to have fun with my kids. And I said to him, there's your purpose. When you can identify a purpose for money, what it does is it starts to activate that little bit of excitement. So now you've got the pattern that's trying to emerge. And the pattern that's trying to stop and the pattern trying to emerge always sit next to each other. The one is in service of the other. The one that's trying to stop is going to irritate you until you go, this has got to stop. I've got to do something different. The one that's trying to start is not just in the wish. It's in that little bit of excitement that goes, oh, just imagine if. So when you build a strong enough imagine if, and in his case it was security, taking the family on holiday, doing things, now he had the motivation to actually start changing his thoughts and his orientation and not do it comes, it goes, it comes, it goes. It was it comes, invest, it comes, understand it. So he was giving it different places to flow. And because of that, he could change his orientation and his thoughts. And as soon as he did that, he was changing his emotional DNA. And then, by the way, and this isn't in the book, but he actually started teaching his kids.
Hmm.
This is how we speak about money. This is what we do with money. Money is a friend. So now he's passed it down to the next generation. But don't forget, he has his need to grow to thank his parents and grandparents for, because without them struggling, he may not have been ignited to grow. So there is always that element of thanks too.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. Looking back at what someone did to perhaps hurt you or put you in that mindset is not very healthy. I mean, I agree. It's healthiest to look back at it as almost a gift so that you can learn.
Right.
Isn't that correct? Isn't that right?
Absolutely. In life, I tell people this all the time, every single train wreck is not a train wreck. It is a gift. All you've got to do is find the gift and pivot, because it's creating a portal of possibility. And it's always there. It's not just a nice idea. It's literally always there. We've been taught to suffer. We've been taught to think the sky is falling. But if we begin to teach ourselves the opposite, we find that the universe, the money, all of those pieces, our emotional DNA is always in service of us. It always has been.
And it's important to keep going to try and figure something out, right? I think I shared with you when we were off camera that I can be anxious.
Right.
And as when my kids were little, I was sometimes anxious. I don't think that serves little kids very well at all. And particular when we were in a crowded situation, right? We would travel quite a bit when they were kids. If we were in a crowded train station or we were somewhere unfamiliar and it was crowded. And it's taken me all these years to realize I may not do so well in crowds. So now I'm learning what to do in crowds, perhaps not to go around crowds and avoid crowds. Maybe is that the right thing to do?
Well,
Or
I
to,
would suggest instead that what you do is go, what is the feeling? What, and really look at it carefully. What do I tell myself? What is the feeling? What do I, where does it sit in my body? What do I make that feeling mean about me? And what do I make that feeling mean about others? And then
mm,
where have I felt that before? When did that first ever start for me? And did anybody else in the family have a similar anxiety? Because then you're going to get to root cause. And when you get to root cause, you can then go, oh, okay, so that was then. Is that still true for me now? Or is the new pattern asking to come in of crowds are actually not terrible? I can use them to observe humanity. It's what I do in my life. Oh my
mm.
goodness, what an opportunity. And you start to look at what is the gift that's trying to emerge from the anxiety. But you may be sitting with a multi-generational anxious nervous system. It's not just your nervous system. You may have the multi-generational one creeping in too.
I like how you try and pivot and turn it around. It's like, oh my goodness, what can I learn from the people that I'm around? What can I see from them? That's so important. How do you get to that moment? With a lot of study, a lot of reading, how do you get to that moment
I
where it
think from
becomes where it
so,
becomes almost part of your own DNA now? You've changed that, your DNA.
right. I think the first thing for me is you begin to understand and not just think intellectually, really get that
Right.
those moments, the anxieties, the triggers are there as opportunities. So instead of going
Mm,
huh, and wanting to freak out, if you go, huh, okay, what's that? What's that? What am I thinking? What am I feeling? What is it trying to tell me? What could this become? What am I sitting with right here? You begin to notice that you're being given clues to a bigger life. And then it becomes a game. Instead of it being a terrible, scary thing, now you're literally going through. I say to people, it's like Nintendo or PlayStation or one of those. You keep going at it because if you don't crack it the first time, I always say to them, so do you play video games? Yes. So why don't you quit when you don't get it right the first time? Because then you don't get to the next level. Exactly.
I
That's
like that. On page 122, I told you I footnoted certain areas here. Again, we were talking about new patterns. I like that you talk about acknowledging certain statements. And then on the other side of the page, you talk about developing new patterns for them. I feel utterly useless, is what has been a new pattern. I have a lot to offer, and I'm excited to share it with you. Could you go through some of these? I just think, gosh, in a way, it's simple if we keep just thinking, not simple, but if we keep just thinking this way, right? And making it a habit, right? Could you go
could
through
not
that with
agree
us?
more. We're not taught to do that. It
No.
goes to the half language, which you'll read about in the book, but we're not taught to do that. I have somebody I work with quite a lot, a colleague of mine, and she said to me, I just don't have a lot to offer. And I started to
Oh,
laugh and I said to her, okay, let's sit and take stock. And we went through the whole lot and we went through the whole lot. She went, oh, I'm more competent than I thought. And I said, you think? And she said, but nobody's ever told me or taught me to do that. I've been taught to fix what's wrong, and that's the problem. That it's not that we're wrong and there are not things wrong with us. We have a baseline and we're continually being offered the opportunity to level up. But you first got to understand who and what you are and what you've got. And I often say to people, can you take a compliment? Well, and I go, great. So the only thing you know how to plot on your graph of life is I'm bad, I'm stupid, I'm sad, and I should fix this. You're not hearing you're amazing, you're compassionate, you're collaborative. So how do you get an accurate plot to where you can say, here are my strengths, and now here's what I'm going to keep adding? We don't do that. So with her, it was, let's take stock. Let's have a look what you've got going on. Do you understand you're very capable? She said, oh, well, now I can't say I'm useless anymore. No, sorry about that. You cannot. And when we take stock of all the pieces that we have, you'll be amazed. I had somebody who said to me, my problem is I don't have degrees. And I said, okay, tell me what you've done in your life. And she reamed out all of these courses she's taken and qualified at and all of the different bits and pieces she's done. And I said, okay, so I want you to lay them out in front of you. We're going to walk this together. Now I want you to tell me, is this the equivalent of a 4-year degree? Because the way I'm looking at it, you're way past overqualified. And she said, yeah,
mm,
but I don't have the piece of paper. I said to her, that's all. You have an illusion. I promise I will write you up a certificate so that you can say, I now have a street smart degree. And she started to laugh. We've got it. We don't acknowledge what we have.
mm. Don't you think this is the kind of stuff that we should, if kids aren't learning it at home, because let's face it, we're sometimes repeating behaviors that we
Of
shouldn't.
course.
Shouldn't it be something that is part of the curriculum in schools from
Oh,
very early age?
do I
And why
wish?
isn't it? Well, how can we get it in there? We learn to read, we learn to write and do math, but there's so much else that we need to learn. How can
There
we do
really
that?
is. How do we do that? It doesn't matter what your religion is. It doesn't matter what your culture is. We were raised on, and I'm going to go back to that half language that I speak about. We were raised to believe that the only way that you do good in the world or become any good or any value is to suffer greatly and undergo the slog and then come out as some sort of a hero, because then you're allowed to have the spoils of success. Other than that, you should not have it. So we're skewed. We get taught that suffering is wonderful and struggle is wonderful and failure is amazing. It's not. You don't
Yeah.
have to do that. If we would just teach kids at school, hey, let's have a look at what you did right today. What new
Yeah.
things are you taking home today? What do you want to do? Vision boards. which people always go, yeah, vision. I love vision boards. I actually have two kinds of vision boards, a vision board and a done board. So I put what I want on my vision board because it keeps popping into my mind. And on the other side, I have the done board. Every time I get one done here, it migrates to this one. So now I can see that I'm actually moving in that direction. And we don't build our thoughts, feelings, and actions in a way that supports us to feel strong, capable, helpful, and incredible in the world. We don't.
Okay, here's one for you. Let's say you have a vision board, and this is even part of curriculum in school.
Right.
What about those people who are always trying to tear you down? You're the bully, right? The one who said, ugh, you can't do that. And what about those in your family who just won't go for it, right? They're always trying to bring you down, tear you down. How do you handle that? How
So
do you get the strength?
here's the thing you want to do. Have your
Yeah.
dream. And it's really important to have a dream. It doesn't matter if you're 5 or 95. Have a dream. Have a goal. And then you have your vision board where you can see it. But and don't speak to anyone who's going to rain on your parade. It's not wise. You wouldn't go outside and fertilize your roses with DDT. Don't do it. Give it love, give it attention, work it very, very quietly, and start teaching yourself to win first. Then people are going to look at you and say, how'd you do that? At that point, share a little bit, but really be careful to not put your dreams out where other people can rain on them. It's not useful. It's not.
That is terrific advice. Keep it to yourself and just, a little bit at a time, right?
And don't mind if two things, don't mind if it seems wildly unrealistic, and always make your goals a stretch, not a snap. So you don't want to
Mm.
make it so out there that you can't believe it. I think somewhere in the book I also talk about I wanted to have Disney timeshare. I really did. I don't know if it's in there, but I did from when I moved here because, and there's
I
a
love that.
big story behind Walt. I mean, I've been connected to him since I was about 9. It's a big story with that, but there's the necklace. I came over here, we came with nothing. We started again. And I kept saying, I want to have timeshare there one day. Got to go to Disney, want to have timeshare. Didn't think about it. I mean, thought about it as a desire, but it wasn't but it was still there. And then when we were going to bring my brother over, the money for the accommodation was equal to about a third of the timeshare. And I went, but if I put that as a down payment, and so it was all there because I'd kept that going. When the opportunity and the idea were there, they could connect. So it's really important to not give up. And since then, I've had a lot of things that have happened. It's called don't give up and don't let anybody put you off. Don't share with somebody who will put you off. Don't.
Hmm. Tell me a little bit about, just briefly, about your background and how you got to be as knowledgeable as you are. What were you like as a kid, your family, and all that kind of stuff?
Okay, so as a kid, I had a teacher who said to me, I said to her, I'm going to be a doctor. And she said, no, you're going to write books and help people. That I was 8. And I was really
Oh,
indignant. So I went into the medical arena and then came out of the medical arena, and now I'm doing what I'm doing. Then born and raised in
wow.
South Africa. When I was leaving South Africa, leaving my job, the person who gave my farewell was a Zulu gentleman. And he said, you may be leaving us, but you'll find a way to represent us in the world. And I went, yeah. Well, then I
Hmm.
started doing this work, which is a whole nother story. I'll get to that in a bit, but started doing this work. And somebody said to me, of course, you're going to understand this work. And I went, why? And they said, because it started in South Africa. So it started in South Africa with with a German ministry person by the name of Bert Hellinger. He was a priest, went down, went to the Zulu tribe, studied them, and noticed they didn't have neuroses, and then discovered they were connecting with their ancestors. And so I represent the Zulu
Wow.
tribe every day. So then moved
Wow.
over here. My father was killed. They failed him in all 3 of the disciplines I was trained in, and the door closed on medicine. Started writing books, met somebody who was doing this work, They said, come, I needed help with a piece. They said, come and study my work. I'll help you with the book. I went and studied the work, got no help with the book, but then
Mm.
started doing it with executives and then with big companies, very big companies, Fortune 500 companies, and then discovered that, okay, hold on a minute, there is a whole transformational aspect of this work. And that's where it shifted into the emotional DNA and into watching people transform and doing it in bigger numbers, which is probably my biggest love, is doing it in larger numbers and watching even that group energy and people getting individual pieces of work even within a group. And that became my passion. And I think with that, I think the more that you study what you're doing, the more it unfolds and the more the language of it becomes clear. And so it just kept evolving, and people kept saying, write a book. And I went, I'm not writing a book. So I wrote a little ebook, which then took on a life of its own and became this.
Yeah, and now number one at Amazon, which is pretty incredible. Before I
Yes.
let you go, is there? Go ahead. Yeah, congratulations on that. And you appear everywhere. I mean, all we have to do is just Google your name, and there you are. So I appreciate you taking the time to come on our show. I
It's
really
lovely
do.
to be with you.
Yeah. Any parting words, if you will, that you want to make sure that our audience knows about the book, about you, and about themselves, if you would.
Yes, I'm going to say first of all about them,
Mm,
people. There is no such thing as a train wreck. There is not. You are a remarkable life if only you know how to see it, and you can.
yeah.
Transformation isn't for the chosen few, it's for those who choose it. And in terms of a bit about me, yes, I teach this all over the world. I have events. In fact, I have one coming up in August in Dallas, but I have my big flagship one coming up at Disney World,
Of
November
course.
10 through 13. And that is a 4-day event. And we do a very deep dive into all of this work. This year it's responsive capability and resilience DNA. Yeah. So
Mm.
capability and resilience DNA teaching you how capable you are, where your resilience is, and how to wire it in. And because it's a live event, you get to actually have the in-person experience with the 3D constellation approach, which means you're dimensionalizing all of your issues so you have a totally embodied experience, which, by the way, can shift your thinking and rewire you within an hour.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. That is incredible. For those of us who might not be able to make our way down to Disney World, and I love that you're having it there, would you also be zooming this event as well?
We're looking at it. I don't know at the moment, but at some point that will start happening. The one in Dallas in August is the other option, but people tell me all the time they've been to the Disney ones before, and they tell me you take 4 days out of your life to invest 4 days into your life, and you're
Right.
never the same.
That's a great thing to end on. Thank you so much. Judy Wilkins-Smith, you're such a wealth of knowledge, but this is a great book, people. Pick it up. Decoding Your Emotional Blueprint, a powerful guide to transformation through detangling multi-generational patterns. Judy Wilkins-Smith, you've been a delight. Thank you so much for joining us. And
And
please,
thank
people,
you.
pick up the book. It was a real, there are certain chapters in here that really actually helped me as well. And we always have to keep learning, right? And keep going. So keep challenging ourselves. So thank you so much. And everybody, you could find our interview on Facebook, on YouTube, and on all audio channels as our podcast. Also, we put it up on Instagram, IGTV. So you'll find it everywhere. Just look up Deborah Kobylt Live and Judy Wilkins-Smith, and you'll find us. So thank you so much, Judy. Thank you to our audience for joining us. Pick up the book, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.